How's it going, everybody? It's Topher here, and today we're going to be doing a little review of my time tufting. I will say I've been tufting for about 6 months or so now, and here's my progress. So basically, I went from making stuff that is like this. This is the very first thing I ever tufted. It's like a little smiley face. Obviously, it's a little cursed, but you know, that's the first one. Glue bear on the back, and now I have taken some commissions and made a couple little I don't have it right now, but like Animal Crossing leaves. Maybe I'll like throw up a video or a picture here. I have gone all the way up to making this like 3 foot by 3 foot Dragon Ball, which is pretty cool. This one, I think I should still have a picture of this. This was actually like a color error. But I'll go over that a little bit just as one of my tips. It's pretty dope. Then a friend of mine commissioned me to make this little guy, little Paw Patrol fella. Hope I don't get copyright strike for this. This is just like my interpretation. That's like the safe way to do it, right? Then we got a Manchester United. This one was actually super complicated. Had a lot of small details. It was pretty tough. And then my personal favorite, it's not finished on the back, but I made a little Blockbuster one. So one of the tips that I've learned since making that last video is you definitely need a really good pair of scissors. And I know that sounds a little weird, but I bought this pair of scissors from Amazon. Stupid. These are like a Japanese pair of scissors. They're Kai N5210. It's made in Japan. It was like 18 bucks. These are key because when you're tufting and you're like going up on a piece of fabric, you'll have a lot of pieces of yarn that kind of just hang out, because not every single punch from the gun or whatever is perfect. And on the other side, you want to kind of like, get those fine little, adjustments so it looks a little cleaner, especially on the back side that you're working on, because that's where you have to glue it. And I'll show you, a lot of the first ones I did, like this little smiley face guy, it's kind of hard to tell on here because this is all cotton, but you can see like a little wave right here. Like it looks kind of wavy. This is all like extra little hairs that I have on here, little pieces of yarn that I didn't cut. So now underneath, it's really hard to see, but underneath there's just no glue. So if I wanted, I could just rip this out a little easily, which you don't want that to happen. It's also good to have those little trimmers that a lot of people use to try and shave it and shape it and everything. That is kind of where I'm starting to get in my journey of learning. I'm trying to start shaping things. I don't have any examples here. Well, no, that Dragon Ball rug had a little bit of an example. I guess I'll show you. But that's another good tip. Tip number 2, you definitely want to have a good pair of those clippers. They're not absolutely necessary if you're just starting out, but once you do it a little while, if you're like, you know what, this is something I want to do and try to make money off of, or try and like sell them or make them for family members and friends, you want to make multiple, it's not a bad idea. Those clippers save you a lot of time. It's a little scary to do it first because I always thought it's just going to rip up the back and I'm not going to be able to glue it. But basically, I use my scissors to clean up as I'm going through the process, and then at the end I use the trimmer on the back and on the front a little bit. Obviously, you want to make it look nice on the front too. I use the trimmer on the back side to trim all that down so the glue sticks a little better and you don't have that waving effect like on that piece. So I tried a little bit of the shaping on this Dragon Ball rug because this one has a mistake on it. So I was like, you know what, let me just do a little bit of something. I don't know if you can really tell on here. This one's a little more obvious. I tried to shape it so that like the star kind of pops out. This one I did pretty well. Luckily there's 4 stars on this one, so I got to try 4 different things. That one you can tell there's a little bit of shaping on it, but it's not super great. That one I think is the one I left just plain. Yeah, I can feel it. I'm pretty sure that's the one I left plain. And then one of them I know I went like a little too hard on. But yeah, shaving and shaping, it's a little tough because then you end up with mistakes. Like on this one specifically, I tried to shape or shave down the edges here. It's really hard to see, but there's a little white right there, and you don't want to see that. That means I shaved too deep into it. So you definitely want to be like kind of careful. I noticed while I was editing, I forgot one important thing that I said I was going to go over in the video. So for that Dragon Ball rug, you couldn't really see it, but I'm going to put it up on the screen now. As you can see here, the one from beforehand on the left, this one had a totally different color in the middle there. That was because of probably one of the most important tips you'll learn about doing this is you need to pay attention to the yarn that you're buying as well, because even if you buy the same color, this was like, I think it was called pumpkin or something of that nature. I bought them all in different lots, meaning they were dyed in different lots at the same factory or at like different factories by the same brand, I guess. And that messed it up because the actual shade of the color was totally different. Even though it was the same general color, I'm guessing over time that dye kind of runs out and they want you to buy that kind of stuff in the same lot. So I'll show you here on this ball of yarn. So what you want to look for on these balls of yarn that you get to, let's see if I can like clear it. I don't know if I can make it super clear, but right here on the back, you'll have art number. I'm assuming that is like the color. Then you'll have the actual color name from the brand. This one is Big Twist. I'll show you in a minute, but I don't want to unfocus this. And then this is the most important part you want to search for, especially if you do this for a little while and you know this is going to take like a couple balls of yarn that are small or big. You want to get the same lot. Lot number, you want it to be either the same or I'm guessing the next increment up depending on how they do it. You want to also have it on the same date. I'm assuming it'll be the same lot, but you want to have it manufactured around the same date. I'm assuming on the same lot. And this is the brand up front. That is primarily the reason why that picture on the left that I showed you earlier looks so bad. But then if you look at the one on the right, that was me buying all of the same color in the same lot, and that helped me a whole lot in keeping peace of mind. Like when I was doing it, I kind of thought like, oh, this is a little strange. These kind of look like a different shade, but I can't really tell because yarn is so thin. I was like, this should be fine. And I didn't realize until I had already spent like another 4 hours tufting. So just be careful of that. You definitely don't want to have that mistake like I did, because that rug took me every bit of like 12 hours. And I've seen similar rugs sell for like $200-300. And it's like nearly $100 worth of materials I spent on that one. So I think this is probably like the most important tip, and I'm sorry I left it out earlier. That's why I wanted to just hop in and, you know, let you guys know. So, but tip number 3, you definitely want to start getting into putting backing on your rugs. I know that might have been a tip I said in the first video, or it should have been, but I wasn't really finishing them like that as often, and I didn't really have a technique because I only did like 5 or 6 at that time. But for example, this is kind of a complex shape because it's a face and all that stuff, but so now I have this backing that I put on them, and it has like rubber grips where you throw it on like a linoleum floor, like a wooden floor, and it doesn't move around as much. It's pretty nice, and you cut it like I do it, where I cut the tufting fabric and I basically have it up on the stand. I'll glue it, and then I'll throw a sheet of backing onto it. So then what you want to do is take a good pair of scissors and then cut it out almost to the shape, leave like 1.5 inches or 2 to the shape around the edges of your rug. It's really easy for like a circle, but a shape like this is a little complex. So basically I'll glue this on the back. Not only will I glue the rug, you know, actual tufting in place, but the glue, I also throw this on the back because it, you know, it's sticky on both sides. So I just glue this on and use that without having to do any extra adhesive spray. That was what I was doing a lot at first. Wasn't really that great. And now this is like a much better solution with something I was already doing. I just didn't think of it till now. But once that's all done, I cut it out. I give it 1 inch or 2 around the edges. I really just cut a square around it usually if I can, and then I just take it later and I do a more fine-tuned cutting around the edges. Basically the method I use, I just fold it over and I hot glue it in place. That's the big pain of it. Tip number 4, you definitely want a hot glue gun. Even though they're kind of a pain, there's some pretty cool ones that I've seen people use. There's like Ryobi ones that are small, that are like a pen. It might be a little better. I use just a Gorilla Glue hot one that squeezes. It's alright, but you definitely have to get used to the amount of glue that's coming out at once and get really used to getting your fingers burnt, because it's going to happen no matter what. But after that, I actually got some fabric tape. I guess that would be tip number 5. So fabric tape gives it a really nice finished look on the back, and it doesn't reveal those edges where, if you look, there's like the edge of the tufting fabric, but since this is back there, you can't really see that. Now it kind of just gives it more refined look. There are some people who sew these in. I have just been hot gluing them, and I have not had any complaints so far. Maybe everybody's just being real nice, but I don't mind it because I don't look at the back of this as much. This is more like, hey, I'm just, you know, looking at the front, which I think is pretty cool. Another tip, the biggest, most important tip I can tell you, I did not get, you know, this good out of the gate. I was not able to do details and stuff like this out of the gate. Certain things, certain designs, certain shapes, you have to kind of do it a lot. You have to be willing to make a bunch of fun different shapes and rugs and cool stuff that you think is interesting, so that you can try things, so that you can experiment. Like, for example, I'll use the Marshall rug again. So for most of my designs, I like to use double stitch, like 2 pieces of yarn inside the gun. But there's certain parts, I think for most of this I did, but there's certain parts where it's really so thin that you can only use 1. The problem with that is it ends up being a little less defined. So you have to know, you have to do it enough to know when to do that. Like, there's certain times where, like, you'll have a darker shape. Here I wanted to do a single stitch, but you can't because you can't really see. I have the gray and then the black stitching, and I want this to stand out so you can kind of see it more from a distance. You just have to really take the time and practice. I know everybody says that about every single thing, but the thing that worked for me genuinely was finding some cool designs that you can put on a projector. Side tip, on a projector, if you're going to be using designs, if you want them to look how they look in the picture, you want to get a projector that you can change the settings to reverse the image. You want to flip it, basically, like it's being mirrored, because otherwise everything's going to come out backwards, which is fine if you don't care about that kind of stuff. But for example, stuff with words, like this Blockbuster rug, right as I was starting it, I was almost going to put it in regular, and I realized, oh, those letters aren't going to come out right. So I had to, you know, reverse the image. And, you know, little things like that you learn over time as you do it more often. And it's a lot to ask because it's a good investment, but yarn isn't super expensive. If you go to like Joann Fabrics, that's where I go. A lot of the times they're going to give you about 25% off if you use the app, or you're going to get coupons in the mail, or there's coupons in store you can use, and a lot of the times their yarn's on sale. One big thing is I switched from cotton-based yarns for rugs to these acrylics, and I've had almost no issues. Honestly, I can't think of a single issue I've had with acrylic so far. Yarn is definitely heavier when it's cotton, but the acrylic is so much thicker and so much more easy to use that I don't have, I guess I could say I don't have as many issues trying to get a bunch of pieces in one place. Like with that smiley face one I made, I was just going all over the place. 1, because I was new at it, and 2, because cotton yarn is so much smaller, it took so much longer. But yeah, another issue that I've run into is on my stand. I made a tufting station that has the carpet strips, the tack strips with the little nails on them. I don't know how to do this yet. I will release an update video when I figure it out. But there are people who, instead of those nails are like this big, maybe like ½ an inch. That is not enough. Like the tufting material I use, I have to, I don't know if it's by virtue of how many of those little nails are on there, because the spacing is a little wide for certain tack strips, or if it's just they're not long enough. But I have a lot of the times where I will like punch it on and some of it will fall off, or a thread over here will be pulled down real hard just by how hard I pulled it up on the nearby nails, and then it'll look kind of crazy, like droopy. So then another one of my best friends, another side tip, I guess this would be like side tip 2 or 3, I have a staple gun and I just shoot staples into it to keep it in place. That's a little more, you have to feel out your fabric, a little more advanced. You have to be doing it pretty often to know what you're doing with that, or else you might rip into it or, you know, hurt yourself if you're not wearing like safety glasses. You definitely want to wear safety gear when you're doing this. But I think I want to try and upgrade to the point where I get like a tack strip, but not a real tack strip, like a piece of wood that I somehow drive just long nails into. I've seen somebody with nails about 1 inch or 2 long that come out, and it seems like they stick so much better, even though they're not at an angle, they're like just straight through. It seems like it sticks so much better, because the big pain of this is like getting into the corners. The corners of these tack strips don't have any nails in them, at least where mine meet, and I have to like staple them every time, which is fine, but it's getting harder and harder to pull those staples out, because now I'm pulling out the tack strips and I'm wondering when, you know, it's gonna ruin one of my designs or it's just gonna break or something. So definitely think about the, I guess, the stability of your tufting station. That's an important piece. If I do an update where I try to upgrade to those nails, I'll let you guys know. I would like to. I just have to, like, I guess, try and find somebody who's already done it. If anybody who's watching has done it before or has any tips, please let me know. I think that's about it. I just wanted to show you guys my progression. Honestly, I didn't watch any, you know, tutorials or anything on how to do this better. I just kind of started doing it. And it's a pretty easy hobby to get into if you have the money for it up front and you're creative enough to like make a tufting stand, or you want to just buy one. But you really have to, in my opinion, find and download designs that you really want to make onto like a USB or however you work your projector. That's what you want to put those images onto. You have to really take the time to find something you want to make. So a cool image, like I made a Dragon Ball, I made a Blockbuster rug. I thought those were super cool. They're not perfect, like my width on some of these, on some of the lines, like for the Blockbuster, there's a yellow line that goes around. The width is a little big, so I still have a lot of learning to do. But it was something that I thought was so cool and so nostalgic, because I remember going to Blockbuster so much as a kid and seeing their carpets and their design everywhere. I wanted to make it. You can't just go, oh, hey, I want to start commissioning designs from people and then use that as your jumping point. I'm not saying I've seen anybody who does do that, but, you know, as someone who has now done a couple commissions for people, they only wanted me to do stuff for them when they saw me posting regularly, like on my Instagram and on like TikTok, and opening my Etsy shop and saying, hey, this is what I have and stuff like that. Like, that's the only way I've gotten people to actually like pay me for designs is, hey, I've practiced enough and now I feel a little confident, let me show people what I'm working with. Then they message me on either Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and then they say, hey, I want you to make this design, can you do it for me? That's actually the second Paw Patrol Marshall rug that I've made. And I feel like it worked out pretty well. I will say I noticed that there are slight differences from the first one to the second one. Nothing major, just different design choices I've made, and that all comes with time and practice. So if you get into this and you give yourself the time to practice everything, I think you'll end up finding that it's actually not that difficult to get into, and it's not that hard to create these things and create awesome things that you can put in your house, hang on your wall, sell to your friends and family, or put online. Like, it's a pretty cool thing, and I'm very grateful that I've been able to share my experience. I'll make a video for you guys when it's been a year, just to see if I've made any progress or if there's any other tips I can think of. And of course, if I make that video about putting those like longer nail tack strips in there. But if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, just, you know, let me know. Hit me up. I'll be here if anybody has any advice or questions, or wants to know anything else about my journey so far. So thank you guys so much for watching. Best of luck. Happy tufting. Peace out.